This is Cast of Wonders, the young adult fiction podcast featuring stories of the fantastic. Welcome! Episode 121, Little Wonders 5, Trope Twists, from March 30th, 2014. You're listening to Little Wonders, our flash fiction collection centered around a theme or genre. This episode, we bring you the conclusion of our March Flash Fiction Month with Trope Twists. Did I say March? Well, it was supposed to be March. That was until 4 weeks ago, when our hosting company spontaneously combusted, along with all our backups. Let this be a lesson to all the podcasters out there. Redundant backups, off-site backups even, are your friend. But thanks to all the hardworking people behind the scenes, the site is now back in our control and working again. We've lost a significant portion of our back catalog at this point, and some of our additional content, but we'll be working to get it all restored in the coming few weeks. If you're an author whose story has gone missing from the site and you need it back up as a matter of priority, please get in touch. As we enter Parsec nomination season, we'll be concentrating on this year's eligible stories as a reconstruction priority. And a big thank you to all of you, our patient listeners, and everyone who's volunteered to help with the rebuild process. By way of thank you, we're going to bring you 2 episodes this week. Check back with us Wednesday, April 30th, for our return to feature-length stories with the fantastic Sunday by Matt Wallace. Now, let's get back to the reason we're all here, the conclusion of our flash fiction, month. According to the dictionary, a trope is a theme or device that's overused and has become cliché. There are thousands of them, and you can probably rattle off a dozen without breaking a sweat. Every genre has them, though the common YA tropes seem to be less represented in short fiction than in longer novel-length works. They can be as generic and wide as good versus evil, or a damsel in distress in fantasy, or they can be more specific, like an artificial intelligence that rises up against its creator in science fiction. What about supernatural romance's classic trope of a werewolf-vampire love triangle? And here's a good one from the paranormal/horror category, Bad Black Barf. You ever notice how anytime someone who's evil or infected gets sick, it's black? That's a trope. TV and movies have them too, and I recommend the excellent tvtropes.org if you want to spend many enjoyable hours learning more about them. We'll put that link in the show notes for you. Tropes are useful for an author because there's something a writer can assume they have in common with their audience. If a writer refers to something being like Romeo and Juliet, their audience knows that the characters are romantically interested in each other, and it saves on words. But that assumption cuts both ways. What happens when the path you expect isn't the one you find yourself walking? Which brings us to the first of our twisted tropes today, and the story which inspired this Little Wonders collection, The Hero by Jessica Holzner. Jessica is a freelance writer in Oregon who loves to write fun fantasy stories. She has 2 novels published by ASJ Publishing, Legend of the Phoenix and Kenneth Randall, Grower. She's on Twitter as @JessicaHolscher, and you can find out more about her on her Facebook page, which we'll link in the show notes as well. Hero was narrated by the extremely talented John Seymour. John is an infectious diseases physician in Baltimore. I bet he knows all about Bad Black Barf, who splits his time between treating horrors such as syphilis and molding the next generation of doctors while repeatedly washing his hands in between. When not hurting his 5 cats or going fanboy over the space endeavors of his wife, Moon Ranger Laura, John infects various podcast and radio projects with his voice. He's the chief medical officer and bad doctor in residence at his personal blog where he consults and ruminates over all manner of things. You can find that at saintnickanuck.com. Are you ready for some stories? Good, because twisted tales can come in surprisingly small packages.
This is John Smar narrating The Hero by Jessica Holzner. Down a desolate and lonely dirt road, a young man walked towards the horizon. With a sword at his back, he traveled for destiny. The famed fortune-teller of the town he'd just left, Madam Mystic, told him he would defeat the three-headed dragon and save the princess. Without a moment's hesitation, he headed for the beast to save the missing damsel. Suddenly, a rustling caught his attention. Surely he couldn't have already reached the monster. He readied his sword and stood firm. The rustling grew louder, and a female child emerged from the bush. "Boy, oh boy, am I hungry. Do you have any food?" she asked. "What are you doing all the way out here? It's dangerous for a child." "It's fine." She held out her hand. "You can call me Dee." "Nathaniel." He shook her hand. "Lady Dee, I should take you home, but I am on an important mission. You'll have to come with me, but do as I say, and you won't get hurt." "Is this a kidnapping? Are you kidnapping me?" Dee asked. "Of course not. I just meant that I'm off to defeat the three-headed dragon, so listen to what I say, or else it might eat you." "Sure," Dee said. Then, with a wicked smile, she added, "But I'm not going home after. I don't like it at home. It's too stuffy." Nathaniel decided not to argue with her. Although he had no intention of letting this child meander away after his battle, he didn't want to waste any time before finding the three-headed dragon. He had to reach the beast before it was too late to rescue the princess. "So, why are we killing the three-headed dragon?" Dee asked. "We are not doing anything. I am killing the dragon because he has captured the princess, and I am going to rescue her." Dee chuckled. "Oh, is that so? How do you know that he has the princess?" "Madam Mystic told me, but any fool would know that only something as evil as that dragon would kidnap a princess." "That lady is crazy. So, you and the princess, friends?" Dee giggled. "Well, no, I've never seen her. I've only just recently arrived in this land. I am a traveling warrior." "What a hero." A loud roar interrupted their conversation. Nathaniel threw his arm in front of Dee to stop her advance. He unsheathed his sword and stood, battle-ready. Around the bend stood the three-headed dragon, its body the size of a one-story house. "Is that the beast?" Dee asked. "Are you going to kill it now? How exciting!" Nathaniel scanned the beast for any weaknesses. It seemed unbeatable, but nothing was immortal. "There," Nathaniel pointed at the monster's chest. "Its heart is on the outside of its ribcage. Do you see the beating? A single strike to that would kill it instantly." "Yeah, easy," Dee snorted. "Too bad those 2 extra heads are guarding it with their razor-sharp teeth, and probably fire breath." "Do dragons have fire breath?" Nathaniel asked. "How would I know? Aren't you the hero? It just seems that every story I've heard they have fire breath." "I don't think it has fire breath," Nathaniel said. "It's just not physically possible." The dragon took a deep breath and made a coughing noise. A green liquid flew out and hit a nearby tree. The tree melted into a pile of goo. "Oh, good," Dee said. "No fire breath, just acid spit." The dragon then scorched the pile of goo with a long breath of pure fire. "Oh, and fire breath. He has fire breath too," Dee said. "You need a diversion or something to get its attention while you attack the heart." "No way am I letting you be a diversion." "Duh," Dee said. "I wasn't offering myself. I was just saying it would be nice if you had one." Enough was enough. Nathaniel already knew the outcome of this battle. He could not fail. With a brave face, he raced at the three-headed dragon. He jumped to the left to dodge a splash of acid. He rolled to the right to avoid a blistering burst of fire. Only feet from the beast, he raised his sword in victory and swung. The three-headed dragon blocked the blow with the tough scales of his arm and struck Nathaniel, causing him to fly a few hundred feet. He collided with a tree and came to a painful stop. Despite the stinging pain, he reached for his sword, but it was gone. He had dropped it when the dragon blocked his attack. The dragon stalked towards Nathaniel and sucked in his breath, preparing for either a spit of acid or breath of fire. Just when Nathaniel thought it was the end, the dragon began to choke. "Ha ha ha! You suck, dragon!" Dee laughed. Dee had picked up Nathaniel's discarded sword. She stood on the dragon's left arm, the sword still in the dragon's heart. With a great cry, the dragon tumbled to the ground, shaking the land around him. When the dust settled, Dee stood, victorious, the sword still in her hand. "That was so cool! I can't believe I rescued someone," Dee said. "I am so ready to go home now. I got that out of my system." "You killed it," Nathaniel said. "But I was supposed to." "Princess Deandra!" A swarm of guards surrounded the duo, their swords drawn on Nathaniel. "What's going on?" Nathaniel demanded. One of the guards approached Dee. "Princess Deandra, I'm so glad you're safe. We must take you home at once. Guards, capture that man!" "Capture me for what?" Nathaniel demanded. "For kidnapping the princess and trying to feed her to the three-headed dragon." The guard patted Dee's head. "I'm proud of you for managing to get his sword from him and defeat the monster all on your own." Dee smiled and winked at Nathaniel. "I told you that Madam Mystic was crazy." The guards seized Nathaniel as he screamed he was innocent. Perhaps Dee would tell the guards the truth. Perhaps.
I don't know. Sounds like Nathaniel's out of luck. Unless Dee decides the next thing she wants to learn how to do is break out of a dungeon. Princesses and being rescued from dragons is likely one of the oldest and most pervasive tropes in fantasy. It's played out a lot of different ways throughout the course of history. Everything from Hercules rescuing Hesione from Poseidon's sea monster to Princess Peach always being in yet another castle poor Mario and Luigi have to battle their way through. Our next story, though, takes on the damsel in distress trope in quite a different way. Our next story is The Secret Life of Sleeping Beauty by Charity Thomasub. Charity has slung corn on the cob for Green Giant and jumped out of airplanes, but not at the same time. She's worn both Girl Scout and Army green. These days, she writes fiction, long and short, and works as a technical writer. Her novel, The Geek Girl's Guide to Cheerleading, written with co-author Darcy Vance, was a YALSA 2012 popular paperback pick. Her short speculative fiction has appeared in the Unidentified Funny Objects and Coffee anthologies, Flash Fiction Online, and elsewhere. Next month, her YA novelette Just a Matter of Time will appear in Volume 3 of Sucker Literary Magazine, which we'll link in the show notes for you. She's on Twitter as Geek Girl x2, that's X2, and her blog is Righting Wrongs on WordPress. Your narrator is Chloe Yates. Chloe has written several pieces for the excellent Fox Spirit books, and her latest story, Well Our Feeble Frame He Knows, closes out Guardians in their Fox Pocket series. More of her work will be included in several upcoming anthologies, including Tits Up in Wonderland, which will round off the Missing Monarchs Fox Pocket, and can also be heard in episode 16 of Dark Fiction magazine. She also has all things fall in the upcoming anthology Girl at the End of the World, Volume 1. She writes humorous, if somewhat macabre, poetry, and you can contact her through her website, chloeyates.com, while she wanders through Twitter under the sobriquet Shobali. She's currently working on a collection of short stories for Fox Spirit and on her first novel. English-born, she lives in the middle of Switzerland with her bearded paramour, Mr. Y, and their disapproving dog, Miss Moddy.
The Secret Life of Sleeping Beauty by Charity Thomaseb. Try it, my cousins say. They are the perfect princess trifecta, all in pink, peach, and plum. I hesitate. I don't trust myself, not around things that are sharp. My mother, the Queen, has banned all things pointy. Embroidery and knitting needles, even crochet hooks, but the object in the corner of my room is different. Come on, Plum says. She holds up her cell phone, ready to take a picture, while the other two urge me forward. You know how she is. I do. So does my mother, who always intones, never trust a woman whose only goal is to look as young as her teenage daughters. My aunt's gifts have a way of backfiring. Last year, she gave me an elixir that makes your lips red like cherries and your cheeks glow like apples. I refused it, but my cousins guzzled it down. At that evening's ball, fruit flies swarmed around them the entire time. What I really want for my birthday is a baseball bat and glove. I want to round up the pages, cajole the scribe into keeping score, and play until the sun hovers low in the sky and it's too late to bathe for a formal dinner, never mind the ball afterwards. But my cousins tremble. If they don't get proof that I've at least touched the present, their mother will rage. Pity compels me forward. Besides, compared to last year, a spindle is downright practical. I reach out. Plum's cell phone camera clicks. 3 seconds before I hit the stone floor, I think, my finger is going to hurt all day long. Chaos roars around me, but I can't wake. A narcoleptic slumber is no way to spend your sweet 16. My mother thunders at my cousins, and they cower, all quivering tulle and satin. My finger still hurts. The sobs subside. Yawns fill the air. Courtiers sink to the floor. Page boys slump against the wall. My cousins, too, sleep. My mother tucks a blanket around me and kisses my forehead before taking to her own bed. For 100 years, we lie dormant. This wouldn't be so bad, except my cousins, they snore. Heavy boots stomp. Swords rattle. The door crashes open. The scent of blood and sweat fills the room. Something looms above me. Something, I think, means to kiss me. I worry about 100 years of neglected dental hygiene. But really, he's the one with dragon breath. Volumes have been written about epic first kisses. This one? I'm not sure it rates a Facebook status update. My eyes spring open, that kiss the living embodiment of caffeine. A boy I don't recognize kneels by my bed. I worry about being nearly 100 years older than he is. We will have to rename the village. Cougarville has a nice ring to it. First, we should probably get to know each other. What's your name? I ask. Charming. I blink. I'm sure he's many things. Clearly he has mad skills in the sword-wielding department. But I was on the receiving end of that kiss. Charming? Not so much. Shall we marry at sunset? He asks, as if he already knows the answer. Shall we... What? He squeezes my hand. Pain shoots through my finger, and I yank free. Marry? For real? I'd rather swing a baseball bat. Or a sword. And Charming does look tired. I hear dragon slaying is kind of stressful. After all this time, the spindle still sits in the corner of the room. I point to it. "Can you bring me that?" I ask, all princessy innocence. I should feel bad about this, but I don't. Charming only manages a step, spindle in hand, before he crashes to the floor, armour clanking loud enough to wake the dead. But they sleep on, and Charming's snores blend with my cousin's. It's a fairy tale match, I think. They can fight over him once everyone wakes up. I fashion a new notch in his belt, then I attach the scabbard and blade around my waist. I pull on my own boots and pick up his shield. It feels good in my hand. I tuck a pillow beneath Charming's head and leave the room. My finger no longer hurts. In the master suite, I pause next to my mother. A serene smile lights her face. I tuck the comforter around her shoulders and whisper, "I'll be back," after I've slain a few dragons.
Now that's my kind of self-rescuing princess. The difference between a trope and a cliché is, as we say in the law, a matter of fact and degree. What one person considers old hat might qualify as hilarity through repetition to another. You know, something that starts off funny, then gets even funnier the more times you do it. Like Monty Python's Silly Walks, or the 9th child accidentally hits parents somewhere sensitive clip on those funniest home video shows. Michael Strickland's Big Feet takes that principle to a chilling extreme. Michael has published a handful of other short stories in small indie outlets. In addition to Big Feet, his story Pale Green Pants, inspired by What Was I Scared Of in Dr. Seuss's Sneetches and Other Stories, had recently appeared in the anthology Green Eggs and Horror. By day, Michael wrangles words as a professional copywriter, and you can find him online at strict.net. Link in the show notes, of course. He says this story was created when a friend challenged him to reduce a screenplay idea to a flash story under 300 words. Regular listeners of Cast of Wonders will recognize our next two narrators, the podcasting duo of Big Anklevich and Rish Outfield from the Dunesteef Audio Fiction magazine. Dunesteef features genre stories brought to you as full-cast audio productions created by some of the most talented producers in the podsphere. After each story, Big and Rish treat you to scintillating, thought-provoking, and often mind-numbing... I'm sorry, I meant mind-opening? Mind-expanding, maybe? Conversation related to the day's story and other geek-centric topics. Check it out at dunesteef.com.
Big Feet by Michael Strickland. The plan was simple. Rent a gorilla costume, head out into the forest, shoot footage of a fake Bigfoot sighting, post the video on the internet, and watch it go viral. Bask in the media frenzy, ink a deal to produce a documentary series about searching for Sasquatch, get rich and famous. And so far, the plan was unfolding perfectly. Cooper sat on a rock and rewound the last shot while Bobby adjusted the gorilla mask.
Nice!
He laughed as he watched the playback.
Come check it out!
Bobby pulled the mask off and walked over to peer at the camera's little screen.
That shot would have been perfect if you hadn't caught the mask on that branch.
Cooper beamed.
Let's shoot it again, just like that. Good.
Bobby grumbled.
It's getting damn hot in this thing.
He pulled the mask back on and crouched behind a bush. Cooper raised the camera and shouted, "Action!" Bobby made some grunting noises and hunched his way across a clearing, dragging his arms along the ground. He looked up, as if just noticing Cooper for the first time, and let out a simian-like bellow straight at the camera. Behind the lens, Cooper grinned.
This is YouTube gold,
he thought. Suddenly, still looking through the viewfinder, he spotted movement in the bushes behind Bobby. He looked up from the camera just in time to see an angry mass of fur leap out in front of the costumed gorilla with a howl much louder than Bobby's. A real-life Sasquatch towered over Bobby, sharp incisors bared.
Bobby, watch!
He screamed, but the beast struck before he could finish the warning. Fake fur and blood flew. Cooper dropped the camera in terror and turned to flee, only to find himself face to furry face with a second toothy Sasquatch. C.J. Rickards was no internet junkie. In fact, he was the last of his family to even get around to using email. But after he found the abandoned video camera on a hunting trip, near a few bones and bits of decomposing flesh, and his nephew helped him upload the footage to YouTube, he quickly spawned the latest viral video sensation.
To bring our twisted tropes to a close this week, we present Alexandra Grunberg's Jack and the Griffin Eggs. Alexandra is a New York City-based author and actress. Her work has appeared in daily science fiction, perihelion science fiction, and here at Cast of Wonders in episode 106, our Little Wonders collection, The Journey, with Treasure Hunter. Her story, Any Ending, won third place in Fiction Vortex's August monthly contest, and her story, Finale in Blue, won third place in their October horror contest. She's currently writing a web series, Housed, in which she will also be appearing as a lead character. You can find links to her stories at alexandragrunberg.wordpress.com. Rich Outfield's prior narrations for Cast of Wonders include episode 91, Open 28 Hours, and the chilling cosmetic procedures from episode 69. We're thrilled to have him back.
Jack and the Griffin Eggs by Alexandra Grunberg. Jack pressed against the side of the mountain, his feet barely fitting on the small ledge of stone that marked the path to the griffin's nest. The wind made his sleeves billow wildly, trying to pull his body away from the ragged surface to which he desperately clung. His woolen sack slapped against his back, and Jack risked releasing a hand to clutch it closer to his body. He did not come this far just to fail. Others had made the journey, others with less noble hearts and less pure moral compasses. His family was starving. His wife was ill, spitting up blood in coughs that racked her body. His son was wild, desperate, turning to thievery to help the family. His baby daughter had died. Jack paused to hug the side of the mountain, letting the wind whistle in his ears, brushing the tears from his cheek to fall in the open air. Far forward, barely visible, Jack could just glimpse the nest of the griffin, and wondered if there were even any eggs left in the nest. Griffin eggs, and griffins themselves, were extremely valuable, and this griffin was the rare golden glider, the most valuable of them all. And, perhaps because they knew the danger of their beautiful feathers and shining eggs, they made their nests in some of the hardest places for people to reach. But that did not stop people from trying. Jack slid carefully along the mountain, one hand guiding him in an easy grip on the rock, one hand still clutching his precious sack. He tried not to look down. He failed. As the wind picked up, he continued on the path. Finally, he reached the nest of the golden glider. The mother griffin was absent, but Jack was still cautious as he slid into the nest. It was large enough to fit 3 grown men comfortably, but Jack was still careful not to bump the 2 eggs inside. Their shells radiated gold, sparkling like precious jewels against the dull, tawny straw of their bed. They were as large as the glass orb the local witch used to see into the distant future and tell fortunes. But these eggs were a fortune unto themselves. Jack hesitated. How much money could he get for a golden egg? How much would one of the fat merchants in town be willing to pay? How much would one be worth for his family? Not as much as they were worth to their mother. Jack reached into his sack and took out a 3rd egg, resting it gently against its brothers. He understood why his son had stolen the egg. He could understand the boy's desire for a quick fix and a way to help the family no matter the danger, no matter the cost to others. But Jack had lost a child. He would not wish that loss on anyone else. He would not save his family by causing another parent the pain he knew so well. The wind picked up again, but this was an unnatural wind. Jack looked up to see the golden glider descending toward him, her wings and chest sparkling as bright as her eggs, each beautiful feather the same shining gold. Her talons were gold as well, each as long as his forearm, each ending in a razor-sharp point. Jack crouched and ducked his head under his arm, weak protection against the wrath of a mother, expecting to soon feel the rip and tear of vengeance. But the pain did not come. Jack looked up at the golden glider, who sat, contented, over her children. Their eyes locked, and Jack saw that they were intelligent, not the eyes of a monster or beast, but a reasoning being. With a loud screech she began flapping her wings, and the resulting gusts knocked Jack to the ground. She stood over him, her flapping becoming more and more wild and violent. Her feathers loosened and fell from her wings and chest, as she thanked Jack with a shower of gold.
And that's our show this week. We hope you've enjoyed this collection of typical tales with a twist. Outside my office window today, the weather has fluctuated between bright sunshine and pouring rain to even some snow all over the course of a few hours. That can mean only one thing. It's definitely spring. And with spring comes thoughts of summer, and summer means convention season. Conventions are a great way to meet new people who share your interests and to interact with your favorite artists, creatives, and authors, not to mention the shopping. There are conventions for every type of fandom, from role-playing games at the gigantic Gen Con to video gaming's E3, and of course the granddaddy of them all, San Diego's Comic Con. Not to mention literature, of course. This year, the World Science Fiction Convention will be in London, to name but one example. But there are lots of smaller conventions too, and probably ones close to where you live. I'd encourage every enthusiastic fan out there to attend a convention at least once. If you're at all intimidated by the idea, reach out to the convention staff and ask about their welcoming team for first-time attendees. And most conventions are kid-friendly, with programming and entertainment the whole family can enjoy. See if one fits with your plans this summer, and then come tell us about it. If you have something to share about this or any of our episodes, why not tweet about it or play it for your friends and family? And please consider donating to Cast of Wonders to help us keep bringing you the best young adult audio fiction week after week. Cast of Wonders is a production of Wolfsbane Publishing and is brought to you by the creative team of Barry J. Northern, our publisher and artist, Alan Sale, our audio producer, and I remain, as always, your humble editor and host, Marguerite Kenner. Our episodes are released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license. Share it, but don't twist it. The Little Wonders theme, Verses, is by Alexi Nov and provided by MusicAlley.com. Thanks for listening. Boy, this one's just gonna be full of tongue twisters, isn't it?